This world is full of diverse cultures, different ethnic groups, and different races, where not everybody sees things the same way. When I was young, I moved from my homeland of the United States to a small country in Eastern Europe, where I was able to see with my own eyes one of the major issues that presents itself when one race collides with another race. I'm going to be talking about racism today. Today I'm going to define the terms race and racism, elaborate on 3 different types of racism, and show 3 causes of racism. According to the New Webster's Dictionary, the word race is defined as a distinct group of people, the members of which share certain inherited physical characteristics and transmit them to their descendants. The definition of racism is the belief that one's own race is superior and has the right to rule or dominate over other races. Now that we've defined both of these terms, race and racism, let's examine 3 different types of racism: historical, scientific, and institutional. Historical racism occurs when people are judged solely on the basis of their common descent and ancestry, and are seen as less human because of their origin and history. One example of historical racism took place in the 1930s when Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. He believed that fair-skinned Germans were the supreme form of human race, and that the Jews were the opposite, fit only for slavery or death. Adolf Hitler eventually stripped the Jews of all of their rights and forced them into concentration camps, where millions of Jews were killed. This terrible event, now widely known as the Holocaust, happened as a direct result of the German race thinking it was superior to the Jewish race. Scientific racism is the belief that one's physical traits or genetic makeup determines level of intelligence, and therefore making one race superior to any other race, no matter what their history. There are many different examples in history that I could give of scientific racism, but I've chosen one that took place in the United States. In the 19th century, around the time of the Civil War, the foremost scientists of that day were attempting to prove that Africans were of a different species than Caucasians. This was used to justify the slavery and deaths of multiple Africans. To this day, there still exists scientific racism between groups due to the difference in color of skin. Institutional racism happens when political or social groups discriminate either intentionally or indirectly against certain groups of people to limit their freedom and rights. One example of institutional racism was the apartheid in South Africa. For almost 50 years, a white minority government put South Africans into 4 racial categories: blacks, whites, coloreds, and Asians. Laws were made to separate the different races in every aspect. The government limited the black Africans from owning land and assigned all non-white Africans to different neighborhoods and different jobs. They even separated the stores and schools for the different races. Now let's take a look at my last point, the 3 causes of racism: stereotyping, unfamiliarity, and environmental. Stereotyping is defined as a generalization that people make about certain groups, assuming that they all are that way. People make stereotypes about races. For example, no Caucasian man can dance, or all Mexicans are lazy. The mass media even plays a part in stereotyping different races, which often leads directly towards forming a racist viewpoint in people. Unfamiliarity could also lead to racism. A lot of times people fear what they do not understand. If people do not grow up around a particular race, and instead are told stereotypical things about that race, the chance of racism could be increased. The environment that someone lives in could also cause racism. For example, if a child is taught to wash their hands before dinner, that concept will most likely be instilled in them for the rest of their lives. Likewise, if children are taught by their parents to be racist, there will be more chances of them staying racist. In summary, today we've learned the definitions of race and racism, learned 3 types of racism, which are historical, institutional, and scientific, and have also seen 3 causes of racism, which are stereotyping, unfamiliarity, and environmental. I would like to close with a quote by Ruth Fulton Benedict, an American cultural anthropologist. "Racism is an ism to which everyone in the world today is exposed. For or against, we must make a decision, and the history of the future will differ according to the decision which we make.